Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about silver linings. This is something I've been thinking about lately. Just situations where it seemed tough, but then I found a better way of thinking about the situation. I kind of reframed it, and it was a better way to approach it. What made me think of this is I did a video recently for me, but probably a while back for when this will post, about doing a hypothetical game jam. I'll do a link below. And during that, I pointed out that if I was in a game jam where I had a limited amount of time, I already know what I'm good at, and plus I know a bunch of techniques. So I pointed out that if I was going to do that game jam, I would not try to do a game that had a lot of art requirements or a lot of UI, because I'm not very good at making art, and I know UI is a tremendous time sink. So instead, I said, why don't I use existing code? Or someone pointed out in the comments that some game jams don't let you bring code that you've already written. Existing techniques, because I can reproduce code that I've done many times before if code is restricted. But by using existing code or techniques, I can already get started right away. I can hit the ground running. And if it's a limited time game jam, like a 48-hour one, that's really important to do. So you have to think of the limitations as not something you need to work around, but instead something that directly informs what you're going to do. And I started thinking about this, and I realized I've been talking about this for more than 2 years now. This channel's been around for more than 2 years. And it's like a running sub-theme in a lot of my videos. So I pulled a bunch of them. There's one where I talk about Fallout being a B tier project, and I'm linking that below. And what I meant by that is it was never until towards the end of its production considered to be one of the top tier games at Interplay. They were putting all their, eggs in the D&D basket, and we also had Star Trek, and we had a number of licenses, and they wanted all their game, muscle to go behind that. And Fallout was just something that got started and almost got canceled a few times because it wasn't D&D, and then we lost the license we did have for it. But during that B tier video, I talked about how I wasn't even allowed to approach people to talk about the game because everybody was assigned to something else, and I was the only one assigned to it. So after I'd put together this, isometric engine and a voxel engine and a 3D engine, I got everybody together after hours. I just sent out an email saying if anyone wants to come talk, meet me in a conference room and there will be pizza. I did not know that limitation was self-selecting for a highly motivated, highly passionate team. So what was a limitation turned out to be an amazing filter for what turned out to be a really awesome team to work with. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I went through my videos some more. I've got a video on how we did structure building in buildings and walls and ceilings and doors and windows in Arcanum. And there's a video I'll link below called our Arcanum Prototypes and Structures, where because we were very limited in Arcanum, there were a dozen people working on that game, and we did not have a big company to get extra resources from. So we were a small team with a limited amount of time, just a limited amount of personnel. So we needed really good tools. So the editor that I made for Arcanum, called World Ed, made creating buildings very easy. You go in a top-down view and just drag out a rectangle, and it would put in the ceiling, all the walls, the floors. You could click to make doors and windows anywhere you wanted. You could widen them to double doors, or you could take a single window and make it longer. We had to do that because on Fallout, we had someone who did nothing but make maps. But on Arcanum, there was nobody who could spend 24 hours a day making maps. People wore a bunch of different hats. Similarly, I have a video on Arcanum's scripting system called Sock Monkey, and there's an Arcanum scripting video that I'll link below. I had to make Sock Monkey so that anybody on the team could make a script, because there weren't enough. We only had 4 programmers, and they were busy writing code. they couldn't make the content for the game as well, or they could make some of it, but not all of it. So everybody, the artists, designers, anyone who else was on the team had to be able to make scripts. And that's why I made a very simple front end. I made it so that you couldn't make a syntactically incorrect script. You could make a semantically incorrect one, but not a syntactically incorrect one. And if you watch the video, you know what I'm talking about. But it's all about taking this limitation. We had very limited resources, so we leveraged it by making a much, much better tool. Now, yeah, that tool took a while to make, but once it was done, anyone on the team could make a script. This isn't just true for my videos about making games. I have a video about how I have color blindness, and it didn't hit me until I was 20, and it gets worse every year, and I really don't see colors very well. The world looks like washed out sepia and watercolor to me. But guess what? I have really good night vision. Really good night vision. I go walk the dog at night. I don't take a flashlight. I don't need one. I'm surprised when I see people with flashlights out there, because there are street lights, and even if you're not under one, it's still fairly bright. But a lot of that is just because I see better at night than most of you do. When you don't have cones working in your eyeball, your rods don't have to fight them. It's why when you walk into a brightly lit room and turn off the lights, it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. Guess what? Most of what my eyes do are just from the rods. So there's not much cones that I have to wait to adjust for. So I see better at night. I wish I didn't have color blindness, but I'll go with the night vision. So the point of all this is, if you're working on a game right now, and I assume a lot of you are, and I'm hoping you are, because I want to retire and play your games, don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you do have. Focus on what you know. So whether you're making a game for a game jam, or you're making a demo because you want to shop your game around, or you're actually making a whole game yourself because you're a solo indie developer, do what you know. People ask me about engines. I say pick an engine that you know. People ask me about programming languages. Pick a programming language that you know. If you're trying to decide what game to make, pick a genre that you know well, that you've played a lot of games, and make a game in that genre. If you're answering any or all of these questions with, Tim, but I don't know game engine, programming language, a lot of games. Well, guess what? Now you have a roadmap of the things you have to do to learn how to make your game. Learn a game engine. Learn one of the languages that game engine supports. Play a lot of games in a particular genre, and then make a game yourself from your own POV. You don't have a POV? You'll make one. You'll create one over time as you learn what it is about games you like and don't like, which isn't exactly like what everybody else likes and doesn't like. And I also don't want you to think by looking at all the games I've made that things got easier. None of my games were ever easy to make. They all encountered different problems. There were always different friction points. But the point here is you need to find a silver lining in whatever cloud is raining on you at the moment, and use that to your advantage when you're making a game. So one last recommendation is I made a creativity under pressure video, and I'll link that below, which all started out from a quote from one of the band members of Kraftwerk, of all things, who basically said limitations can be a really good thing when what you're trying to do is creative. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Making a video game is like half technical and half art. And trying to be creative on a timetable, on a schedule, is very difficult. So sometimes having limitations forced on you, or even forcing them on yourself, is really good at making you go forward in a much more limited space of possibility, because you have to, because the other options just aren't available to you. I think this is a good thing. I think after you make your game, you look back and go, it's a good thing I stuck to just Unity, or it's a good thing I stuck just to C#, because that helped you when you had to make decisions on what was good for that particular engine or that particular language. Anyway, just always think of silver linings, and I hope that helps you.